Hello and welcome back to the black portion of the Edge of Eternities limited set review. In this video, I'll be going over all the black cards and how good I think they're going to be in limited, with a focus around draft specifically, as you can see by these lovely tiers here, if you have not been to one of my set reviews before. We use a 5-tier system. Tier 1 is good, Tier 5 is bad. The tiers are loosely based around when I would expect to take the cards in a given pack. It's not an exact science. It's a little bit, here and there, all that. Good way to talk about cards, good way to get yourself ready for the set. Just really just to go through the cards and think about how they interact with each other, and that's all we like to do here. If you like that, if you like that type of content, if you like other limited content, feel free to subscribe. There is occasionally streaming going on here. There's other videos I do every set. It's there's some regularly scheduled programming and some we're trying stuff out. We're just trying stuff out. We're going to get started with Afaradil Stone Chosen. Didn't pronounce that right. 3 black for a 3/3. It has War to discard a card at random. And Void. Whenever it attacks, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn, or a spell was warped this turn, defending player loses half their life rounded up. So this just is really bad. The thing is, like, you could say, okay, well, alright, they have a 5-mana 3/3 that when I kill it, I discard a card at random. That's a bad word cost to be paying. The problem is the attack is just not even good, and you have to, like, the Void has to have triggered before it attacks, which means you have to play the thing that triggers the Void pre-combat, which is pretty bad. It means you're more likely to be tapping out pre-combat, which you never really want to be doing. 5-mana 3/3s aren't good. I don't like, your opponent is just going to let this live. Like, they don't really care. Yes, in theory it can kill you if you're at 1 life, right? Oh, it rounds up, so it can actually kill you, but I mean, it kind of just doesn't really work. It just doesn't. It's too, like, when your 5-drop does this in a lot of spots, your opponent's already going to be at 12, and yeah, they take 6 from this, but then they just block it and then they move on with their life. It's worse than if you had just had a 6/6 in play where they couldn't block it and then had to either chump or take 6. That, like that, you know what I mean? That's a worse conundrum for your opponent to be in than just having a 3/3 in play. So yeah, this seems quite bad. Arch Enemy's Charm. I actually, like, do you see how my brain kind of, like, was firing there? It was like, oh, don't just read the word without actually interpreting it first. So that was for all you psychologists out there. Triple black for an instant. Choose one, exile target creature or planeswalker. Return up to 1 or 2 target creature card and or planeswalker cards from your graveyard to your hand. Put 2+1/+1. Counters on target creature you control, it gains lifelink until end of turn. These type of charms are very good. The cost is a bit prohibitive. Triple black is tough. I do think this is good enough that I should probably move it up, because even though this is really hard to cast, the modes are really strong, and to be honest with you, it's not like this is bad on turn 6. So I do think that tier 3 is a bit too harsh. There have been triple color charms in the past that have been reasonable and limited. We had the Archdruid's charm, I think, from Brothers War, which was a triple green one. Now green is easier than black to get 3 of, but still, that card was pretty good, and even though it was harder to cast, I think you would still play it in most green decks. And this, I think, is going to be the same. I think you will play this in most black decks, so I actually do think you can take it a little bit higher than I was implying. Beam Saw Prospector. 1 in a black 2/1. When it dies, create a lander token. So, over the course of many years and many sets, we kind of have seen this effect a lot. The 2-drop that dies and makes token. And it just kind of, like, is always medium. You can always, like, you can play this. You can play this in your black deck, and it's not going to be, like, a complete disaster. But it's never a priority. It's never really the 2-drop you're excited about having in your deck. There are sacrifice themes going on, specifically in, like, red-black, a little bit of white-black, maybe. But just not a card you need to prioritize, and in a pretty below rate, too. Blade of the Swarm. 3 in a black for a 3/1. When this enters, choose one. Put 2+1/+1 counters on it, or put target exiled card with warp on the bottom of its owner's library. So that second ability is quite good. However, it means that you're playing a 4-mana 3/1. A 4-mana 3/1 is really bad. The effect of putting something that's been warped into the library is actually really, really strong because you're effectively making your opponent go down a card, but you get to choose the card that they're going down. The problem is that if they don't have a creature that's warped, this is really bad. Like a 4-mana 5/3, it's just not that good. So, yes, warp is going to be a key part of this format, and it's the most important part of this format, I think, but I don't think it's so important that you need to prioritize this thing because it's just really small. Corral, I don't know. I don't. Okay, continue. Of the Void, 3 and a black for an enchantment. Enchant creature you control. Whenever an enchanted creature attacks, put target creature from defending player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, tapped and attacking. It has Void. At the beginning of your end step, sacrifice this aura unless a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was warped this turn. Just like the strangest card of all time, I think it's one of those ones where I'm like, I kind of like have respect for whoever cooked this up because like I don't know how you would ever think to do this. It's so many different like weird interweaving pieces. So you have to get the creature from your opponent's graveyard, and then you have to have something leave the battlefield, but it doesn't have to leave the battlefield on your side. It can be anything leaving the battlefield. And then the enchantment gets sacrificed, not the creature. So this will go, but not the creature you reanimate. So there's just a lot of like weird interlude. Like this just seems like a nightmare to play with in paper, is what I'm saying. Like this just seems like a disaster. But I kind of respect the design for being so like weirdly complex. It's a cool card. I don't think it's great. It requires a lot of you, and a lot of times it's just going to reanimate one thing. Your opponent sees it, like they're like, "Oh, well, I saw that you reanimated my thing, and now I am just going to let the enchantment die," which is good. If you have a good attack, it's good. If your opponent has any of those blue bounce spells, though, that's going to be game losing, especially because they can target their own creature with the blue bounce spell and then they have it back in their hand, or they could just target the thing that has the enchantment on it, or a number of different things. Um, the thing you're getting back is tapped and attacking. Maybe it doesn't have good attacks. I don't know. There's lots of things to not like about this card, but I think it's very cool, and that's why I'm not putting it in tier 5. Comet Crawler, 2 and a black, 2/3 lifelink. Whenever this creature attacks, you may sacrifice another creature or artifact. If you do, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So I am going to move this back down, I think. 3-mana 2/3 lifelink we've seen in the past. It has been a while. Usually there's something else going on, but 3-mana 2/3 lifelink historically has actually been quite good. And that's why I have it here. But will I actually draft it here? It has the 3-drop problem. Yeah, I mean, it is a free sack outlet. That is something to think about, but I think tier 3 is a bit aggressive, even though I do like lifelink. Alright, so we've adjusted it down. Just the, like, I mean, I like it. It just has no types, and like, if it was an artifact, I would move it into tier 3, but it is not, and so it will stay in tier 4. Dark Endurance. 1 in a black instant, costs 1 less to cast if it targets a blocking creature. Target creature gets +2/+0 and gains indestructible until end of turn. Kind of interesting. So on your opponent's turn, if you want to block something and then cast this, it's half off. That's quite good, actually. Like, that mode is actually the better mode. But you can also use it as a attacking aggressive combat trick. These sort of effects in black tend not to be great. I mean, this one is 1 mana on blocks, which is good. The problem is that sometimes you want to like use it as a protection spell, and then it's still 2 mana, and it's like, you know, like that's usually too much. So it notably like doesn't tap the thing. Sometimes these tap stuff, but I mean, this is just like fine. I don't think it's a priority, but I think it's not the worst. Decode Transmissions. 2 in a black sorcery, you draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. Void. If a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn, or a spell was warped this turn. Instead, you draw 2 cards and each opponent loses 2 life. So, either you're going to lose 2 life or your opponent's going to lose 2 life. It's going to be pretty. Well, is that even true that it's going to be that difficult to get this to work? I don't think so. The reason I don't have this as high, I actually kind of like this card. Like, sneaky kind of like it. The reason it's this low is that blue has like so much good card draw in this set. Like, so much of blue's card draw is like aggressively costed that to me, I just feel like you can get card draw in blue. Now, obviously, not every black deck is a blue deck, but a lot of the black decks that want card draw are the blue black decks, like your slower decks. And so this, I don't like where does this actually fit? And I just don't think there's really a spot. So we'll see. Depressurize. 1 on a black instant. Target creature gets -3/-0 until end of turn. Then if that creature's power is 0 or less, destroy it. Really interesting spin on this. So it's essentially a -3/-3, but it goes after power instead of toughness. Sometimes this is going to be good for you, and sometimes it's going to be bad. There's actually a pretty high number of like 3-mana 2/4s in this set. So this actually, I think it's probably a buff that it is going after power instead of toughness. Power numbers are usually lower than toughness numbers, although it really varies. But usually toughness is higher than power on creatures in general. So this may or may not kill more things. Either way, it's going to be good for you that it does that. Sometimes it's going to be bad sometimes. But I think this is just a solid 2-mana removal spell. It's just a classic good card. Dubious Delicacy. 2 and a black for a food. When this artifact enters, up to 1 target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn. You can pay 2 to tap it to sacrifice it and you gain 3 life, or you can pay 2 and tap to sacrifice it. Target opponent loses 3 life. To me, this looks crazy good. The thing that I really like about it is you don't have to sacrifice it to gain the life right away. And basically, it's just going to sit on the battlefield and your opponent's is just at 17 until you have to sacrifice it, right? It's like they just have to be thinking about the fact that you could at some point sacrifice this to drain them or to burn them out. And that's like a real thing. And it's also an artifact. I really like this. I think this is a very very good removal spell. Is it better or worse than this card? Good question. I've rated them in the same tier. So genuinely, I could see either one of them being better. Like I think they're both good. I could genuinely be like, yeah, I mean, you could convince me that either of these is the better card, and I'm open to hearing that. To be honest with you, Elegy Acolyte. 2 black black for a 4/4 lifelink. When one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you draw a card and lose 1 life. At the beginning of your end step, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was worked this turn, create a 2/2 robot artifact creature token. So this is cool. You can play it on turn 4, and your opponent then has to block all your creatures. And if they do, you play this on turn 4, and you don't have the concern with this obviously is, what if I don't have creatures that can attack? Okay, I mean that does happen sometimes, right? Like that is a thing that happens, and like is tier 1 a little aggressive as a result of that? Yes, it is. It's a little aggressive. Tier 1, and I might convince myself to talk this down to tier 2 because it is a 4-drop, but it does have lifelink. Lifelink, as I agonized about earlier, quite good. It does only trigger once. Like it does draw the card once, but that doesn't really. I'm not that pressed about it. Basically, the way I see this is you play this on 4. You can attack with your, because let's say you have two twos in play, and your opponent has a 2/3 or and they have like a whatever. Let's say they have one block that's really good for them and one block that like trades, right? Well, you can still make that attack profitably because this will get you a 2/2, and then you're still doing okay. And so I think that in most game states, this is going to be really strong and annoying and hard to deal with. It does have no protection. It does just die sometimes without getting any value. And those two things scare me considerably. We just had Gix be kind of mediocre. Gix from Brothers War was just a special guest, and it was kind of mid. It was tier. I would say it was a tier 2 card, but it severely underperformed its rating from Brothers War, where it was one of the best cards in the set. There, this card I think does more than Gix. Well, actually, I don't know about that. I mean, it has lifelink. It's kind of. Hmm. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued about whether or not I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it. Maybe that's wrong. That's okay with me. I'm okay with being a little bit too high. Embrace Oblivion. Single black for a sorcery is additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact or a creature. Destroy target creature or spacecraft. The key phrase on this, of course, is that you do not exile the thing. Generally, the rule of thumb with these is if it says exile on it, you put it in tier 3. If it says destroy, you put it in tier 4. Because exile matters a lot, and that is kind of the difference between a solid version of this effect and an version of this effect. So there will be decks that want this, I think. Some blue black, maybe some white black, but you're kind of you don't want to prioritize it. Entropic Battle Cruiser, 3 and a black for a spacecraft, and at 1 or more charge counters, whenever an opponent discards a card, they lose 3 life. And then at 8 or more, it's a 3/10 with flying and death touch. Whenever it attacks, each opponent discards a card. Each opponent who can't loses 3 life. So this is really weird. It does nothing, like stone nothing when it enters the battlefield, and that's why it's rated so low here. I'm trying to convince myself to talk myself up on it. The problem is, like, I mean, it just is a lot of work. Like, you're just getting no, like, whenever they discard a card, they lose 3 life. That's good, but against some, like, there's not that much of, like, looting going on. There's some looting going on, but your opponent can just choose not to loot in most spots. They can just be like, okay, I won't loot now. And it's valuable to turn that off, but it's not, like, so valuable that it's worth 4 mana for nothing. Now, 8 is not the highest number to, like, crew it eventually or to station it. A 3/10 Death Touch is weird. This is just a weird card. This card is just weird. Everything about it is weird. There's nothing normal about this card. I don't know. I don't like it. If it ends up being the nuts, that's so be it. I just think it's maybe I'm probably even still underrating it. I don't I yeah I'm off it. I'm off it. I'm deciding I don't like it. Faller's Faithful. 2 and a black for a 3/1. When this creature enters, destroy up to one other target creature. If that creature wasn't dealt damage this turn, its controller draws 2 cards. This looks sweet. So it does only target creatures, but it's a great sack out. You can think about this as a Scorpion, like the Scorpion, the 3/2 that sacrifices that whatever it's called. I don't remember the exploit. It exploits a thing, and then you draw 2 and lose 2. This does that, but it can't target itself, so that's the major downside. But you can sometimes use it as removal to target your opponent's thing that was dealt damage this turn, which is pretty good upside, I think. And you can also target your opponent's thing if you really need to kill the thing and give him 2 cards. You can do that. That is a legal game action that you can take. I just think this is a really flexible, cool card, and I am excited to have it. That's the whole take. Fell Graveship. Graveship, actually. I think. I don't know. 2 and a black with it for a spacecraft. Talking about these spacecraft just throw me off. When it enters, you mill 3 cards, then return a creature or a spacecraft card from your graveyard to your hand, and at 8 or more charge counters, it is a 3/2 with flying and lifelink. Yeah, I mean, this is very similar to the vehicle from whatever it's called, Ether Drift, the 3/2 that was over. This, I think, is better than that, but, like, by how much? I don't know. It doesn't, like, flying lifelink is a combination of abilities that's quite strong. I do think this is better than that card, but the problem is the spacecraft, like the number of spacecraft in your deck that you can have before they start kind of cannibalizing each other's spot in the deck. It It concerns me. It's a concerning thing. It's very reminiscent of vehicles, so I am worried. I'm tampering expectations for the non-premium spacecraft, and this may end up being premium. This may end up being one of the premium ones, so it may end up just being good enough, but I'm hesitant about it. Grav Blade Heavy, 3 in a black for a 3/4. As long as you control an artifact, it has +1/+7, has Death Touch. Sort of your standard like 4-drop that you can play, but is just not that exciting. There's really not a lot to talk about here. It's a 4 mana 4/4 Death Touch. In the decks that want to play it, in those decks, it's a playable card, and otherwise you don't really care that much about it. Grav Kill, 3 in a black, instant exile target creature spacecraft. Very simple, exile removal, single pipped. It's great. Yeah, nothing more to say. Great removal spell. We've seen this be good for a long time. Grav Pack Monoist. I don't know. 2 in a black for a 2/1 with flying. When it dies, create a tapped 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token. So the 3-drop flyer that dies into something is pretty medium. There's usually like ways to balance exile, whatever, and then you just kind of like you just never feel great about it. So this, despite the fact that it dies into a 2/2 instead of like a 1/1 or something, it it's not that great. I don't think it's completely unplayable. I do think if you're playing like the sack deck and you really care about just number of permanents that get into play over the course of the game, this could find a home there, but I'm not super excited. Hull Carver. Single black for a 1/1 with Death Touch. It is an artifact creature. Yeah, I mean, it has types. The 1/1 1/1 Death Touch is not usually super exciting. There have been times where it was, but this one, I think I'm gonna need to see more. Hilderblade. Single black for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +8/+1. Void. At the beginning of your end step, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was warped this turn, attach this equipment to target creature you control. I like this. I like this a lot. I like this more than I responsibly should. I'm being irresponsible with how much I like this card. It's an equipment that has no board impact the turn that you cast it. So that's bad. But the things I really like about it, I really like that it's an artifact, right? Obviously, artifacts matter in the set, matter in black. And I really like that, like, you're, like, Void is just going to be happening. Like, it's just going to be a thing that happens, like, 2 or 3 times over the course of a game. And when it does, you get to equip this for free. And then you just have +3/+1. And you can equip for 4. You're not happy about it. Like, no one's happy about this. But, I mean, I just really like this to me as much as again tier 3 is like it's not a high grade, right? It's like this is an average card. Like that's what it's supposed to mean. Like this is a card that you take in the middle of the pack and you're like pretty happy about. And this to me is that I kind of am like hoping I'm like talking about it like it's better than that. But obviously it's an equipment. It does suffer from all the problems that equipment suffer from. But I really think we're close here. I think this is close to being enough. So I'm respecting it. And if I'm wrong for the 100th time, then that's the cost of doing business. Hymn of the Faller. 1 in a black for a sorcery, surveil 1, and then you draw a card and lose 1 life. Void, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was warped this turn, draw another card. This just seems like the nuts. It also continues to like highlight why warp is just so good, and like everything that like just warp as an ability is just so good. I feel like warp just has to be the best ability in the set, like keyword wise. Like it just has to be what the set is about. I feel like because there's so many things that it's just like, oh, this is just Sign in Blood, but you don't have to. It's like it's whatever it's called, Dark Knight's Whisper. Maybe that's what I think it is. It's just Knight's Whisper, but you don't have to pay 2 life, and you get a surveil. That's what this is. Like 50% of the time. Like you're never casting this on turn 2 if you can't do the thing, which obviously whatever. But on turn 4, again, turn 4, warp, do this. I mean, you're just you're rolling. You're rolling, baby. You're rolling. You're doing everything. You're doing it all. And this seems like great card advantage, which is why part of the reason I didn't like that other card draw spell. Insatiable Skittermaw, 2 and a black, 2/2 with menace. At the beginning of your end step, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn, or a spell was warped this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So these are just never good. They've done this many times, and it just kind of never works. This one seems like it's maybe a little bit better than the last couple of times they've tried it. They tried it with like Descend, and it wasn't good enough. I don't think it's completely unplayable, despite the fact that I rate it in tier 5. I just think I'm never gonna play it. It does threaten to get larger, but the downside of just doing nothing is going to be a problem a lot of the time. Huh? That's what I would think anyway. Lightless Evangel, 1 and a black for a 2/2. Whenever you sacrifice another creature or artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. This is really bad. I actually, so it does. There's not really that many treasures or anything in the set. There is sack outlets. There are landers. But this is just a horrible 2-drop. I should just put this in tier 5 even. I think tier 4 is too generous. These are always terrible, so I don't really, there's no faith. No faith from me. Monoist Circuit Feeder, 4 black for a 4/4 flying. When this creature enters until end of turn, target creature you control gets +X/+0, and target creature opponent controls gets -0/-X, where X is the number of artifacts you control. So it's going to get at least -1/-0 or whatever. So some of us got absolutely burned by Rot Curse Rakshasa in Tarkir Dragonstorm. Now, some of that is because the dragons were really good, and that 6-drop just didn't matter. I am ready to get hurt again, ladies and gentlemen. I actually do think I should move this down. I think tier 1's too high. Even though I believe in the artifact deck, and if this does -2/-2, I'm gonna feel great about it. I do think we've fallen into the trap once again. I'm attempting to prevent this by moving it down a tier. Because it is a 6-drop. It does require synergy, but I mean it's just so like -3/-0 is on the board here. You're getting a good attack too. You can even like station your things. I don't know. This is just great. I like it a lot. Monoist Sentry, single black for a 4/1 with Defender. So the deal with this is that you're trying to station everything with it. Sure is a Defender. This is just like Wall of Torches. Don't think I have that card on my desk, but there may have been a time when I did. Secret desk card. Anyway, don't tell anybody about the secret desk card. That's just between you and me. You don't. This YouTube video is uploaded for you specifically. If you tell anybody about the desk card, you will be. It'll be bad for you. Just don't do it. So the Monoist Sentry, it just kind of like doesn't do anything other than station stuff. It's an artifact, but it doesn't actually block all that well. Yeah, I can trade with the 2-drop, but I mean we need to aspire for more, right? We need to be aspiring for doesn't do nothing most of the game. So yeah, I don't know. It seems like you're playing a bad card to make your stations that already like. I mean, maybe this is just like you have like 5 things, and then they can just kill this, and then what? Then what do you do? And then what do you do? Perigi Beckoner. 4 and a black, 4/5. When this creature enters until end of turn, another target creature you control gets +2/+0 and gains. When this creature dies, return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. You can warp it for 1 and a black. Very interesting card. I've put it in tier 3, which I think is like a lot, but it does say warp on it, and that's the reason. The reason I've put it in tier 3 is it says warp on it. This effect is kind of interesting. It just like gives you a good attack, and then you can also like sack your thing as well. to like get it, make it come back as well, like with the warp, and then it just gets another good attack later on in the game. Again, it says warp on it. I'm respecting this card. I am looking at it right now, and I'm like, in a pack, would I really take this like pick six? I think I would. I think I would really take this pick six and be pretty happy about it. So, yeah. Requiem Monolith. 2 and a black, artifact. You can tap it until end of turn. Target creature gains whenever this creature is dealt damage. You draw that many cards and lose that much life. That creature's controller may have this artifact to deal 1 damage to it. Activate only as a sorcery. So another design that just like people, the set designers were cooking with black. They were just cooking. They were like, oh man, we're gonna make some stuff that is just the most confusing possible. Now, as I've said, there are many good ways to draw cards in this set. So do you really need to do whatever this is to draw cards? Probably not. However, this has weird combat implications that may make some of your creatures unblockable at times. Like you can on turn, like let's say typical on the play curve, right? 2/2, opponent plays a 2/2, you play this on 3, activate it, on target your creature, deal 1 damage to it, then attack. So they're not going to trade, right? But you are now going to be taking 3, you draw a card. So it's like it's strange. Even in that scenario, I'm not sure it's great. And then on defense, obviously it's horrible. Although you can draw 1 card per turn. It's like a Phyrexian Arena that is weird and conditional. Uh Makes your stuff hard to block. You can also like do it on your opponent's blocker. I don't know. This is one of those ones you're really gonna have to see it play out. I don't love it. It doesn't impact the board by itself, but it is an artifact, and it is kind of like a draw engine, and I kind of respect it. Scrounge for Eternity. 2 and a black for a sorcery as an additional cost to cast it. Sacrifice an artifact or creature. Return target creature or spacecraft with total mana value 5 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, then create a lander token. I kind of like this, actually. It's a very expensive reanimate effect, and these sacrifice reanimate effects are historically not great. I kind of like this. There's a reason it's not in tier 5. I sort of respect it. I don't think I want to take it that high, though. There's a lot of restrictions around it, and it always kind of plays out worse than it reads. But I believe you can sack something and then return the thing that you sacrifice. Oh no, you have to target when you cast it. Ooh, unlucky. Unlucky. It's not a choose. If you could choose one though, then you would be able to. Because it targets a creature, you can't. But if it's a choose a creature, you could return the thing that you sacrificed to this. So that would have been kind of cool, but you can't do that. So, is what it is. Sothera the Super Void. 2 black legendary enchantment. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent chooses a creature they control and exiles it. At the beginning of your end step, if a player controls no creatures, sacrifice this, then put a creature card exiled with it onto the battlefield under your control with 2 additional +1/+1 counters on it. I just kind of assume this is bad. As I've said, stuff can get bounced, stuff can get exiled, stuff isn't always dying, right? So your opponent can do that. You're paying 4 mana to do nothing, so there's that. And your opponent has some control over this. So I don't like it at all. Yeah, I simply just don't like it at all. So, yeah, that's kind of my take. Sunset Saboteur. 1 in the black, 4/1 menace ward, discard a card. Whenever this creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature and opponent controls. Very strange. It doesn't block very well. It really only does one thing, and that is attack. And when it attacks, it makes your opponent's creature stronger. So if they kill it, you're not going to be thrilled. But it's a good 2-drop. It's an efficient 2-drop. It's big. does a lot of damage. It can station very effectively if you don't want to attack with it. I like it. Not a lot to complain about. Suzerain, I don't know. Susurian Dirgecraft. 4 and a black 4/3. When it enters, each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. And at 7 or more charge counters, it is a 4/3 with flying. I don't mind it. Again, I talked a little bit about the having too many spacecrafts in your deck problem, and this seems like it's not premium enough that I would want to go out of my way to get a copy of it. The fact that they sacrifice a non-token creature means you're always going to get something decent. Usually, it is an artifact, so I think it's fine, but I don't love it. I'm not excited about it. Susurian Voidborn. 2 and a black 2/2. Whenever this creature or another creature or artifact you control dies, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. It has warp for single black. So I went a little bit hard on this, and even though it has warp on it, I did put it in tier 5. That's very aggressive. This style of card is just not very good. We just had the 2/3 that was actually quite good. Fine. Fine, if the 2/3 was quite good, a 2/2 can't be that, with warp can't be that bad. Fine. I do want to note, however, how much worse a 2/2 is on turn 3 than a 2/3 is, because it does not block any 2-drops. So, I think this is not amazing. There's not as many treasures in this set as there was in the last set, so I don't know. I think it's fine. I don't like. Swarm Color. 3 and a black 2/4 flying. When this creature becomes tapped, you may sacrifice another creature or artifact. If you do, draw a card. Kind of a cool spin on the oh, when it attacks, you get to sack the thing. It's cool. Like the state, you really incentivizes you to have stations going on. It's a 4-mana 2/4 flyer. That's okay. It's not great. I would say bad usually. Yeah, I'd describe it, but not. I don't think it's unplayably bad. I just think it's not really a priority. It's a 4-drop. Temporal Intervention. 2 and a black sorcery. Has void. It costs 2 lists to cast if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was warped this turn. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card. So the earliest you're going to be able to cast this is usually turn 3. Maybe turn 2 with some warps. These effects, when they don't give you something extra on the board, tend to be pretty bad. I don't think it's horrible, but I don't think we're back in the I think this is worse than the one from Tarkir, where it gave you a +1/+1 counter. I think this is just worse than that. So that's kind of my take. Timeline Color. Black 2/2 haste. You may cast this card from your graveyard using its warp ability, and you can warp it for a black and pay 2 life. Yeah. Solid 2-drop. You can warp many times. That's cool. It's not easy to cast. It's a black 2-drop, so that's something. If you did want to play this on turn 1, for whatever reason, you could attack them for 2 and then pay 2 life. You basically are both starting the game at 18 when you do that, which is fine. Sometimes you want your opponent to start the game at 18. Sometimes you don't. Tragic Trajectory. Single black, sorcery. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. Void, that creature gets -10/-10 until end of turn instead of a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn, or a spell was warped this turn. To me, this really is quite nice, right? So I don't love the sorcery speed shock of it all. That's not very good. But the fact that you're getting a 1-mana kill spell whenever you cast a warp, or whenever you warp something, I mean, that just seems like it's insane, right? That just seems so completely broken. I could even make the argument this should just be tier 1, because again, warp is a thing that you want in your deck anyway, and this just turns into a 1-mana murder when you have a warp. So I'm leaving it in tier 2 because it's a sorcery, but yeah, it does seem very, very strong. Umbral Caller Zealot. 1 in a black, 3/2. Sacrifice another creature or artifact. Surveil 1. Now, this is the type of sacrifice outlet we don't see these days. They haven't gone like this in a long time. The long perk. I mean, this is the type of thing we just don't see so much now. The reasons are clear. 0 mana sacrifice to Surveil 1 has been problematic historically. I expect this to be a very strong card. I mean, you're just getting so much extra, right? Sort of seems unassuming. The stats are just great. It's a 2 mana 3/2. I'm surprised it's not a 2/2, or I'm just kind of surprised it's not a 2/2. I just am. I'm a little surprised. I must say. They gave it the extra point, and I respected that. Virus Beetle. The Beetle is back. 1 in a black, 1/1. When it enters, each opponent discards a card. Now, I have reduced its rating from the Neon Dynasty days. It was one of Black's best commons in Neon Dynasty. It was not quite the best, but it was one of the best, partially because of the type stuff. And the types matter once again. And the Virus Beetle it's certainly a card that I have affection for. The original art on Virus Beetle is kind of like more than this one, but that's okay. That's all right. Virus Beetle I'm respecting Virus Beetle. Am I rating it maybe too low? Maybe perhaps, but I do like Virus Beetle. I just think it's not going to quite reach the same heights it did in Neon Dynasty. Void Forged Titan. 4 in a black, 5/4 at the beginning of your end step. If a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was warped this turn, you draw a card, lose 1 life. So I don't love this. The thing about it is, I think as we get further and further into the format, and I need to kind of beat this into my head, against opponents that are playing black and red, you do not wish to just trade into them having 5 open mana. You don't want to really block against your opponent because their void stuff is going to trigger if you do that. If this was just 5 mana, 5/4 draw a card, lose 1 life, how good of a card is that? It's good, but is it great? I wouldn't say so, no. And so that's where sometimes it isn't even that. So that's why I don't love it. I may be being a little bit too much of a hater because, trades happen and, blocking is good and all that, but I just feel like there's better 5s out there. Vote Out. 3 and a black for a sorcery with Convoke. Destroy target creature. So it is a sorcery, so it's getting docked for that. It's getting dinged. But we've just seen Convoke is a very powerful mechanic, especially when stuff cares about tapping stuff and just kind of we've seen a lot of things that are oh, I care about being tapped, not necessarily about attacking or whatever because of stationing. And this is just another avenue to do that. And that's quite good, I think. So yeah, I like it. Yep. I don't know, maybe I should move this down, actually. It is sorcery speed. It's single pipped, though, and it is convocable. And convoke is a very powerful mechanic, especially when there's not that much of it. Yeah, I'm going to leave it in tier 2. It's a little ambitious, but I'm respecting. Zuifit. Osteoharmonist. Okay. 1 black, 2/3. You can tap it to return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's a skeleton in addition to its other types and has no abilities. Activate only as a sorcery. So you're basically only getting the stats back. Now, 3 mana 2/3, not great. That's the long and the short of it. It's not great. Interestingly, when you get this back, it doesn't get a finality counter on it. So if you have one of the many, many free sack outlets, you can get something back, sack it, get it back. So you can keep doing that. There's a lot of sacrifice stuff going on in this set. I'm giving this a lot of respect. I'm giving this ability a lot of respect because 1 black, 2/3 is really bad. Especially 1 black, 2/3 that never blocks. You never block. But just every turn you just get to get a creature back. Like imagine you have a virus beetle and a sack outlet. Like that's not like a crazy thing to exist. Like you could have 2-drop sack outlet, this, play Virus Beetle on 4, tap this, get Virus Beetle back. Your opponent's discarding 2 cards. I mean, that's. Even if you have like a 2-mana sack outlet, it's, something. I think this is. The high end of this is really high. The low end is really low. Um, and the medium, like, I think it's an okay medium case card, and that's why I've respected it. It is kind of it's dicey, but I think it's gonna be good enough that even though it is slow and doesn't block super well and is hard to cast, um, paying 0 mana to get like a 2/2 back every turn is pretty good, I think. And 0 Point Ballad, the final black card. X and a black, sorcery, destroy all creatures with toughness, X or less. You lose X life, if X is 6 or more. Return a creature card you put into a graveyard this way under your control. So you can get either yours or your opponent's creature. Paying 6 life and 7 mana to Wrath to do that, I wouldn't advise it in a lot of spots. The fact that your Wrath costs you life, I don't like. Now, Toxic Deluge is a card that exists and is quite good. Toxic Deluge, you can pay as much life as you want, and then it's just a Wrath. This is pay as much mana and life as you want. That is a little bit different. I'm being a hater, though. I am a Wrath hater. I'm a noted Wrath hater. I do think there's probably decent spots for this. I will not like it. I won't like having it in my deck. I think that taking this higher than I'm suggesting is fine. Losing this much life to do this, though, it is a cost. And it doesn't deal with the stations. So I don't love this. And I'm going to leave it in tier 3, and maybe that's going to be a hot take, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that being a hot take. 7 mana to do the thing. Whatever. Don't think it's going to happen that much. If it happens a lot. I mean, I guess that's what I thought about the white one for actually Albi one, but that made like 5 tokens and then just immediately had board presence and you didn't lose any life and you actually gained life. So having to lose life seems pretty bad. Interestingly, it doesn't give like -X, so you can actually like get an attack in the turn you play it if you have the thing with the highest toughness on the board. It's like something. It's something or nothing. It's something. These style of effects, man. These style of effects, they keep me up at night with how much I don't like them. They upset me. Alright, I'm leaving it in tier 3. Maybe I'll be wrong. That's it. That's the end of the black part of the set review. Check out the other set reviews. I'll see you.